And we are live. Let's go. It's up. It's going. It's another day of MMA Uncensored recap of what happened in this week of combat sports, most notably this UFC main event. Let's dig right into it. Boy, what an interesting one. I will be the first one to admit, as I always am. Actually, hold up. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this. Give me just a second. I have got to send this to my boss to put on our Instagram story to market the live stream. My boss to put on our Instagram story to market the live stream. That looks good quality-wise. I'm back here. I'm back home. I've made it. It was a long journey. If you guys were tuning in to MMA Uncensored this week, we were down in the Dominican Republic. Chris and I really just tried our best. We tore it up as much as we could to cover Karate Combat 42, Luis Roca, and Edgar Skrivers. We will be talking about that in just a moment, but real quick, let's just dive into the UFC main event. Boy, Jailton Almeida and Derek Lewis. I don't think anyone saw this coming. Tell me if you saw this coming. A 25-minute affair that Almeida controlled about, 22 minutes of? I think that's what it was, 21 minutes and 18 seconds or something like that. I was on the boat. I was on the team Almeida getting it done within the first round. I thought it was going to look like the Sergey Spivak fight. I thought it was going to look like the Sergey Pavlovich fight, but instead of, the striking and boxing that Pav brought to Lewis, it would be that jiu-jitsu that Almeida's just been so excellent with. He's a submission specialist. He's a black belt. And, when we think about Derek Lewis, yes, what comes to mind? This dude has impregnable takedown, anti-takedowning. He'll just stand back up, right? That's what's so comical about the Black Beast. That's why this was kind of a funny matchup. But it was short notice. Derek wasn't in camp. So the existing school of thought was Almeida's going to get it done and do what he's done. I mean, he's got, I think, 5 finishes in 6 UFC fights. This dude stops motherfuckers. He puts them away. And that's just not what happened. That's just not really what happened. There wasn't, in my opinion, enough. And I'm going to use this word lightly. I don't want to say there wasn't enough urgency from Almeida to finish, but he just seemed comfortable cruising. He just seemed comfortable cruising and controlling and then getting a 25-minute decision. Post-fight interview, hops on the mic and says, well, I delivered a show. Well, how did you like that show? Jailton, that fucking sucked. I don't. And here's the thing. Let's play devil's advocate. Let's explore the possibility that Jailton's game plan and his approach and his execution was somewhat justified. Derek Lewis is all-time KO leader in the UFC. He's got the most knockouts in promotional history. That isn't a guy that you want to be standing and trading with or messing around with on the feet. So I understand. I do understand bringing him to the canvas and taking him out in the manner that, he did. But here's what I have to bring up is when we go to Derek Lewis's past couple fights, lesser opponents, in my opinion, have gotten him out quicker. Sergey Spivak, 3 minutes into round 1, arm triangle. 55 seconds into round 1, Sergey Pavlovich punches him out of there. Round 2, Tai Tuivasa gets him out of there. Cyril Gane gets him out of there in round 3. I feel like Jailton Almeida should have been able to finish him. And now all those people I listed, guys, they are world class. They are top of the food chain in the heavyweight division. It's no disrespect, but I just feel like the expectation here really was completely turned on its head. And I'll say this, Derek Lewis has only been submitted 2 times. Only 2 people have ever submitted the Black Beast. So assuming that Jailton would come in here and first round breeze through into a rear naked choke, maybe, I don't know, maybe that wasn't the smartest thing, but nobody predicted this decision. I mean, Almeida decision was plus 2,000. It was an inconceivable way of this fight playing out, but that's what we were left with. That's what we got. And Are you happy with it? Are you not happy with it? We got to see Jalton for 25 minutes. His average fight time is about 3 minutes. So we got a lot more of Almeida inside the octagon. But again, not exactly a barn burner. So here's what I want to do. I want to go through and bring in some of the share screen. Let's go. I'm messing around with some new tech here. So apologies if this messes it up. But here's the old Twitter. And I just wanted to go through and see what the public perception was. A lot of people had some funny memes. You know what I'm saying? Marcus was absolutely tearing it up. My man Connor Burks from the MMA Hour, Brazil, you have your Khabib. That's the meme that you get hit with whenever you fight and just look to wrestle and grapple fuck. Derek Lewis here, deep in the fight, just kind of accepting. You know what I mean? Just give him a little. What the fuck is this? Because I'm sure he wasn't all that pleased with it. Because that's not how Derek Lewis likes to perform. I'm sure he's thinking, well, this is I don't want to say waste of time, but again, he's here for a little bit of a paycheck. And in my assessment, it's a short notice fight. It's a guy that stylistically Derek, has struggled with, but he went in there and he got back up several times. Right, end of round 3, he was doing some good work. Jalton was making a couple mistakes, but here let's talk about Nicholas Dalby. Let's talk about. I'm not going to use the phrase fraud check. Let's not use the phrase fraud check. Guys in the UFC are elite. They are, at the top of this sport. Not everybody. There are some people in the UFC that maybe aren't going to be champions or ranked contenders and things like that. So I'm not suggesting blanket statement. They're all the best in the world. Look at Cedric Doumbé and the Lazy King over in the PFL. Those guys might be the best in the world, and they're not in the UFC. But whenever you have a hyped prospect, Gabriel Bonfim, the Bonfim brothers, and you suffer a loss, a defeat, the first thing people go to is fraud check. Let's suspend it. Let's see the next fight. But either way, Gabe Bonfim TKO'd at the end of round number 2 by Nicholas Dalby, promotional veteran. Bonfim's wrestling, he went 3 for 5 on takedowns and total strikes 47 on 103 attempts. So, it was statistically, right, he was doing some good work, but Nicholas Dalby, with the knockdown, some of that defensive wrestling and grappling, getting it back to the feet. And yeah, Alfonso Santana, baby. This is the theme of the betting night probably for most of our UFC Sao Paulo bettors. Is Bonfim bombed that fucking parlay for the majority of people because he was a heavy favorite. I thought the undefeated Gabriel Bonfim, again, myself and many others, not wrote off Nicholas Dalby, but Nicholas is a guy that is a litmus tester. You know what I'm saying? He's a good way to gauge where you're going to go in the division. And at this current moment in time, Gabe Bonfim needs to work on some things. I think he's got to work on that encountering adversity. You know what I'm saying? When you get a bit touched up, right? When you kind of have some problems inside the octagon, are you going to kind of fight through it? Or are you going to flee? You're going to maybe wilt under that pressure in that moment. A couple other interesting fights that we had, Rodrigo Nascimento and Dontel Mays. I believe they ran this one back. Some people were calling this the most unnecessary rematch in all time. Just wait till the trilogy. I can't wait till we get Rodrigo Nascimento and Dontel Mays 3. Maybe headlining a pay-per-view. Fuck it. Dontel Mays getting pay-per-view points. Why the hell not? No, I don't know. I don't know why we were running this one back, but either way, Rodrigo gets it done on the scorecards. Unranked heavyweight action. Unranked heavyweights going to the decision on the main card. How did we feel about that one, fellas? But Dontel Mays is an interesting character because I would say his biggest moment, right, has been that like hip thrusting. I don't know. It was like a north-south position, and he's just ramming the cup into his opponent, which might have been Rodrigo. I can't remember which of Mays' opponents it was, but that was the biggest moment. Outside of that, not notable, right? Not the most notable. But either way, Caio Bahayo over Abus Magomedov. Okay, I'm going to break my logic real quick here. I'm going to completely sound like a hypocrite, but fraud checking. Abus Magomedov, who went from fighting Sean Strickland, and then Strickland goes on, gets a title shot, becomes the champion. Abus now loses the decision to Caio Bahaio and doesn't look all that excellent in those 15 minutes. Caio's great. That's a true specimen, 15-1, great wins so far, and solid performances. I think he's well-rounded. The takedown and the grappling threat is exceptional, but his hands are coming along, and I like the diversity in the striking, the confidence on the feet. Caio Bahaio could be a problem down the line for 185ers. So, put him in against Abus Magomedov, who has some PFL experience, and obviously, the Strickland fight was not a good indicator. That was a tough one. This was his bounce back opportunity. He does not pass that test. So what do you do? Caio Bahaio, top 15. Give this guy a top 15 opponent. I mean, come on. He's, I think, 4-0 inside the UFC? Let's get a quick check real fast. Caio, the natural Bahaio. Yeah, I mean, listen, he's had 2 Contender Series fights. Aaron Jeffrey, who is a phenomenal Canadian prospect now in Bellator, and Jesse Murray won both of those and made his debut in April of last year against Gadzi Omar Gadziev, and has just beaten everybody. Armin Petrosian, Makhmed Muradov, who was at one point considered a gangster, and Michael Olix. I'm going to butcher it. I know. We should know how to say this guy's name. He's got 23 professional fights, a lot of them inside the UFC. Michael Oleksiejczyk, I think. Rear naked choke last time out. That was April of this year. And then, boom, the decision over Abus. Give him a top 15 opponent, or at least somebody that I don't know, that is well-rounded enough to deal with this. I feel like Caio's matchmaking has been good. He's faced strong opposition, but he's been passing these tests. Let's take it to the next level and get a ranking next to the natural. So that was a big rant. that was a lot of energy for one Caio Bahaio. But I like the personality. I like the look. I like the skills. I feel it's time, especially in a division where, some new blood's warranted. Granted, we're getting Khamzat Chimaev and Kamaru Usman inside the 185-pound division. Caio Bahaio right behind him. Catchweight bout to kick off that main card between Elvis Brenner and Kenyan Krzyzewski. I know, I butchered it. I apologize, gang. Elvis is an animal. 3-0 this year, and that upset performance against Garam Katutuladze last time out, I think turned on a lot of people. I think it flipped a switch on the Elvis Brenner bus and created this unique appreciation, right, for what he did. Garam was a dude who people felt that's the new age of lightweight. Garam, Mateusz Gamrot, Armin Saryukian. Garam Katutuladze was he was in those same conversations. And now he's not. Why? Elvis Brenner. That's the answer. What an amazing performance last time out. And he follows it up with a beautiful first-round KO. And I'm going to make this point. One of the other reasons why Garam struggled is, again, the inactivity, some injuries. So I won't say it's all Elvis. It's not all Elvis. But, boy, it certainly didn't help. And then following up, closing 2023 with this first-round knockout. And it was a beautiful KO. Guys, it was a beautiful KO. It was a kind of a looping left in, and then that right, and it just, or maybe it was the other way around. It just glanced on the temple and shut off Kanan, and he was out cold. It was face plant. I mean, it was a really visceral finish. Might have been the best finish of the night. Again, I will say, was not able to watch it. Was flying back from the Dominican Republic, and so I missed out on a decent amount of the card. Apologies there. But from what I'd heard, seen updates online, there were good takeaways. I know the main event was a bummer. I know, I'll be transparent. I know it's a bummer that we had 25 minutes of heavyweight control, heavyweight domination, heavyweight grappling. And really, I mean, let's check the significant striking stats. 38 significant strikes from Jalton, 20 from Derek Lewis over the course of, 25 minutes. Just not great. Not a great ratio on average. But
That's okay, because there were still some other good performances. And continuing with the appreciation of them, Renat Fakhretdinov and Alesi Zaleski dos Santos. I'm gonna call him Easy S. What a he is Easy S has a win over Sean Strickland way back in the day. It's that spinning kick, spinning heel hook kick that plants Strickland down, and then Easy S finishes him. So he's been such a dark horse, I would say, for welterweights because of that. I don't want to say capoeira background, because I'm not going to sound like a pretentious idiot, but he's got creative striking. He's got some unorthodox attempts, and Renat struggled a little bit. Renat struggled a little bit. But at the same time, there were flashes of why Renat's so feared. Fakhretdinov was coming off of the assassination of Kevin Lee. Motown phenom just was washed away. It was a tsunami from Renat in that fight. I mean, it was a quick 50-second submission, I believe, following a 1-2 that planted Lee onto the canvas. Coming into this, huge favorite. I mean, again, kind of like we talked about with Gabe Bonfim. Huge favorite. Everyone believed that Renat was going to be walking through this and snatching up another finish probably. But that's not what happened. That's certainly not what happened at all. In fact, Easy S took that third round 10-8, nearly had Renat out of there. I'm not sure how Renat Fakhretdinov was able to pull through or survive. It was bananas, especially, and this is where I don't know. Like, how could Easy S have finished it? This is the question that's posed for the next couple minutes or so. How could Zaleski dos Santos have kind of just put the 1, 2, 3 finishing touches to get that third round stoppage? I feel like he focused a little bit too much on the head and the ground and pound. And granted, you're in the moment. I get it. But you saw the 1 or 2 punches that he landed on that rib cage that was already hurt from the body kick. That response from Renat, I mean, he was contorting to those strikes. But then Easy S would just go upstairs to the head and throw the hammer fists to the dome. I didn't think that was intelligent. You have him hurt to the body, focus on the body, and that is likely going to be where that stoppage is going to come from. His head's fine. Dome's okay. He can take a couple shots up here. You know what I mean? But if his liver is shutting down and you just keep peppering away at it, I think that would have led to somewhat of a stoppage. But we'll say Renat Fakhretdinov grappling kind of struggled. This one went for 11% on his takedowns, 1 for 9 officially. So Easy S showing some serious layers in the defensive grappling. And I think both guys are going to come away from it being better. The decision officially was a draw. Again, Renat took first 2 rounds. Easy S takes the third 10-8. I have no issue with that. I'm glad to see it. I think we should normalize types of performances like that. That's why we have the 10-point must system. And that's why it's important to recognize, hey, that third round was dominant and it wipes away the goodwill that you've been doing through the first 10 minutes. So excellent fight in that featured prelim. And I'm curious, man. I'm curious to see what they do next with these guys, because with Renat now, you kind of have to matchmake and think, okay, we've found not a ceiling. I don't want to say a ceiling. But we found a level of competition where maybe we should sit in for a moment, or even take the mildest of steps backwards. You know what I mean? I'm not saying jump all the way to some debutante or someone that might be overmatched against Renat. But, I'm sure that they could find a guy that is, again, like Easy S, a veteran of the UFC, has been in there with some top talent, and just see if the litmus test turns out to be true. It's why I have a hard time with the fraud checking. And that's why with Abus Magomedov, it's kind of a different story, because this was the bounce back opportunity and he failed that one again. If Gabe Bonfim goes out there and has a lot of the same problems and doesn't look evolved or doesn't look like he's addressed or changed anything, then I think we can start using maybe some of that terminology. Maybe. But with Renat, I don't think it's there yet. I think that we saw a couple issues, and I think that he encountered some serious adversity. But Easy S is a dog, and he should be absolutely treated like one. And he's not a slouch at all. So that was an excellent fight. I remember a lot of people were really enjoying it. This was my most depressing moment of the evening. Let's get into it. This was Heartbreak City. I was taken to a level of depression I haven't felt since, my younger days. But at 205, Modestas Bukauskas got put out. Second round knockout, Vitor Petrino. Just an excellent just fade into a check left. It was a real good punch, and Modestas, unfortunately, referee waved it off immediately, and it stings. It hurts. If you're a true fan, you know what I mean? You've seen Modestas' journey going from the Khalil Roundtree situation where he blew out his leg, going back to the regional scene, being cut from the UFC, making his way back to the big show. And, he had an excellent performance last time out in his return fight. This one, just not so much. Again, transparency, was not able to tune into it. Thank you, airports and planes. But we'll see. I hope they keep Modestas around. He's talented. He's a great guy. And he beats people on the regional scene. This is the question. Now and we can disagree on this one, and I wouldn't have much of an argument necessarily, but Modestas he's going to beat people on the regional scene. So let's just keep him here. Build him up. Cub Swanson is not going to be a champion, but he's going to be top 30, right? Always going to be a top 30, top 40 guy and a good test. And same thing with Modestas. In my opinion, there's no point kicking him and cutting him out of the promotion and sending him to a regional scene where he is just inevitably going to become a champion of some promotion or dominate a ton of guys. And then it's like, what? Okay, we bring him back again? Well, he shouldn't have left in the first place. That's my thought process. We move on to Angela Hill and Denise Gomez. Angela Hill, 16-13 overall, nearly a 0.5 record, right down, right down the middle. 5 for 9 on takedowns. The grappling was semi-effective. Striking stats, 96 on 153 attempts. And she gets the nod. This is a individual who knows how to get decisions. I want to take it to the Tapology real quick. So bear with me as I yank it up. As I yank up Overkill's record. 11 wins and 11 losses on the scorecards. She is quite literally right down the middle when it comes to going to the judges. 24 fights in the UFC, a bona fide veteran. There's few people who get to 7 fights in the UFC, let alone 24. So I know that we've got a lot of mixed feelings about Angela Hill. She's had the ups, she's had the downs, certainly, but she's been around and she's been in there with everybody. Let's not forget her last fight was in May of this year against Mackenzie Dern. Dern, now a top-ranked individual in that weight class, and probably someone who's going to get a title shot soon. So Denise Gomez stepping up to the plate against a real, battle-tested fighter, not able to get it done. Happens. It happens. I think that there's a case to be made that Angela Hill's got 4 split majority decisions on her resume, and there's several of these fights where it should have gone to Angela Hill. Is that crazy to say? If she was given the Michelle Waterson Gomez and the Claudia Gadelha fights, she would have been on 1 point on a 6-fight win streak in the division. That was in 2021. 6-fight win streak. Instead, 2 don't go her way, and then that creates this whole butterfly effect of, well, what would the matchmaking have looked like if she did get those nods versus what did occur? So I don't know. With Angela Hill, I think that she's a lot better than people will give her credit for. And she's the number 11 ranked strawweight for a reason. She is a top 15 fighter. And who knows? I mean, if Angela Hill can make a little bit of noise, she's 38, so it's certainly not a spring chicken. But if Angela Hill can maybe string together a couple performances and some more wins, we might be seeing her try and knock on the door once again. Now, admittedly, it's difficult because, she's been in there with the Lemoshes and the Tisha Torreses and like the aforementioned Michelle Gomez and Claudia Gadelha. And we've seen how those fights have gone. So if she was going to make another run for the title, it would be probably a series of some rematches where, that Mackenzie Dern one, I was all Dern, but either way, here nor there, Angela Hill getting the decision. And one other fighter, talking about grappling, talking about decisions, Mark fucking Jacasey, the bone crusher. No bones have been crushed in quite some time from Mark Jacasey. 3 for 8 on takedowns. He is Mr. Grapple City. This is a NCAA cauliflower-eared Marchukasi. No longer, and he hasn't been this guy for a minute. So I'm not gonna inflate the, the disappointment here, because my expectation was for him to grapple. Therefore, I can't be disappointed with him grappling. I knew he was going to do this. He's been doing it for the last several fights, and some staggered results, rather, not split results, but staggered results. To Yoel Alvarez, who was able to choke him out in September of this year, so not too long ago, and then dropping the decision to Michael Johnson last year. Damir Hadzovic and Vyacheslav Borshov, those were fights where it was, pretty grapple heavy. There's not much to say. I mean, what else do I say? He got it to the ground, controlled, did enough to keep it there. Ref's not going to stand it up. But I just, I just would like to see the Bone Crusher back again. I'd like to see him stand and trade. I'd like to see him, really operate on the feet. He's got 15 fights in the UFC. He's 8-7 overall, 3 submission losses and 4 decision losses. He's never been knocked out. And I don't know. I think it's like, what do you do? Do you match him up with a grappler and then it turns into a striking fest, which Marchukasi should win against any, grappler style fighter? There's just questions. And he's fought some great guys. I mean, Rafael Alves way back in November of 2021. Alves is a guy who, kind of like I was saying about Modestas Bukauskas, should not be outside the UFC. He's a fun fighter, brings an exciting style, and he's just beating guys on the regional scene. Let's go get a quick check-in on Rafael Alves. Since being released in February of this year, he went and beat up a dude at Peak Fighting 32, got a first-round rear naked choke. It's what these guys that are UFC veterans are going to do, and it's to me, it's a bit, it's a bit goofy. It's a bit silly when Alves lost to Drew Dober and then lost to Nurulo Aliyev, and that's what gets him kicked out. He beat Marchukasi. Before that, lost a decision to Damir Ismagulov. Hey, Damir's done that to a lot of people. No real stock loss there. And before that, a number of wins, right? A really good streak. Granted, I thought that Alves was in the UFC longer than he was. Now that I'm looking at the Tapology and seeing it, he got signed off the Contender Series in August of 2020 and had 4 fights. So, okay, he went 1-3. All right, so maybe I'm thinking, maybe I can understand some of the decision making when it pertains to Alves. Either way, fuck it, get him back in here, bring him back in here. But that's sort of how the UFC Fight Night Almeida versus Lewis Sao Paulo went down. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts. I think we got about 5 people watching, so shout out to you guys for sticking in here and let me know. Were you disappointed? Were you glad to see Jailton Almeida showing some different sides to himself, maybe? Or were you not? I would have loved to see a Derek Lewis KO. I mean, extend that all-time knockout streak until the end of time. I mean, I want the Black Beast to be the only man to have that record. I don't want anyone to pass it. And granted, it's going to be a hard record to pass. I think it's like, 17 knockouts? So best of luck to anybody. Like I was saying earlier, it's hard for some people to stay in the UFC for 7 fights. 17 knockout wins, right? Easier said than done. So I think Lewis does have it locked up, but you never know. Who knows what's right around the corner? Who knows what prospector, badass is going to walk in? But that was UFC Fight Night. Let's chat about Karate Combat 42. So if you guys, again, remembered, we were down there in the Dominican Republic. Casey is such an interesting organization. If you haven't watched Karate Combat, I implore you to just give it a try. It's got a unique, a very unique setup. Instead of a cage or a ring, it's a pit, which has, the foam on it, and the athletes can utilize the pit to either attack, defend, maneuver around. I think it adds more depth, I would say, to the fighting arena. And a lot of Dominican representation. The DR, maybe when it comes to mixed martial arts, isn't as well known or as accomplished. But when it comes to karate, the Dominican Republic has some serious heavy hitters and some great talent. And that's, in my opinion, epitomized in, guys like Maximo Nunez, who are just electrifying personalities, real tough competitors, hard to beat them in the ring. And thankfully, KC put a lot of DR representation on this event and last month's event, which was also down in the Dominican. So that was the big thing for me that I love to see is they're giving opportunities and platforming to local talent, to local guys, local fighters that could use the big break and exposure opportunity, which, I mean, talking about exposure, marketing, social media, Karate Combat is all about that. They've got an excellent marketing department, and a lot of their videos have performed very well. And this week, MMA Uncensored, we did a pretty damn good job, I would say, contributing and helping spread and scale and multiply the engagement. So pat on the back for Team Uncensored. And let's see, what else was there? This was the first show that President Asim Zaidi was a part of as league president. So he's press secretary initially and then upgraded to the role of president. They did a good, just had a stroke right there. I think he did a good job. I think he did a great job. It's a lot thrown at him, especially within the last couple of weeks in the transition. But, he was game for everything. He was incredibly open-minded. And, when we had the chance to talk to him in the post-fight press conference, one of the big questions I had was trying to establish a kind of a space where we can be critical, a space where, I can ask him, hey, what went wrong tonight? And he'll give an honest answer. And there won't be that, because sometimes when you ask a promoter to be a little transparent and to pull back the curtain and to reflect on what went wrong as much as what went right, that's viewed in a negative manner. It's viewed as an attack. It's viewed as something that can be exactly as an attack. And I don't think that that's a fair connotation to have with that. It's about, it's about improvement. It's about all being on the same page of, hey, here's what we think went wrong. And if the president going, yep, same. And that's what we're going to adjust moving forward. So I think like that, the question, I posed it in a manner to try and create that space. And Asim gave an excellent answer. He said there was a lot. There was a lot that we're going to change and a lot of things that we're going to focus on improving and building off of. And, I'll speak a little candidly here. Adam Kovac, the former league president, is, I think, exceptional as well. I think he played so many different roles within the organization, more so than just the league president aspect of it. And, he was connected with the athletes. He really had a deep appreciation and understanding. And a lot of the athletes loved Adam, because Adam's career and his own athletic achievements and accomplishments. I was talking with, I think the co-main event, her name was Christina. She was like, I was sitting in the stands watching Adam Kovac compete years before Karate Combat, and, I can't wait to see what he does next and the greener pastures that are ahead of him. And Asim's got big shoes to fill, but I think this was a great first step. I think that, the mindset that he has is one that's engineered to be collaborative and to be improvement oriented. And he talks about the rebellion. He talks about modernizing karate and bringing in all these other styles and proving, hey, karate, listen, this is a direct quote from him. If we bring in all these guys, BKFC champions and, Sambo dudes. I don't know why Sambo guy would fucking be in a karate pit, but for the sake of it, just different disciplines, and they're beating the karatakas, right? The Karate Combat people. Then that does say something. That is valuable information to have and kind of reflect on and sit in it and go, we got to get better as a sport. Discipline has to evolve. We have to be competitive. At one point in time, right, the art of karate, the style, was something that in the stand-up could beat a lot of people. And if it can't still do that, then I think that's a problem. And I think that's a problem that Asim holds close to his heart. And so, I'm curious. There is, we talked a little bit about the polarizing nature of Asim. Goatshed does have a reputation. They're the viral gym, the hard spars quite frequently gym, and that can turn off a lot of people. But, I'll speak from like a PR businessy standpoint. It's engagement. It gets numbers, it gets views. And I know that is, and I say this, sometimes that's not the focus, right? Sometimes bad PR is just bad PR, right? But there is value in recognizing, okay, clearly they're doing something right, you know? So the one thing from the fight week that I liked from Asim was he drank his own piss. So this was an interesting thing. Loto Machida came on and did some color commentary with Bas Rutten and Josh Palmer, JP, one of the best play-by-plays in the game. And they were doing a sensei session. And Lyoto Machida, of course, has this background, the Machida family, of drinking piss, and they have a lot of reasonings behind it, and their own philosophies. Asim, hey, stepped to the plate and played ball, drank his own piss on camera, and I respect that a ton. I remember we were watching that video with Alejandro Brugal, who got an amazing first round knockout at KC42. And Brugal was sitting there watching the video, and he was like, "Asim's got to drink some more water, man. He's got to hydrate," which I thought was a great little quote from him. And that's another guy. Brugal represents the DR. Trains out in Florida, and I had a real cool connection with him because when I called the Kumite fights back in May, it's a developmental contender series type show that Karate Combat tried. Alejandro Brugal was one of the winners, so I got to experience and witness and be a part of his first steps in the organization. And he's the first Kumite winner to actually compete on a numbered Karate Combat event. And to get a 16-second, 17-second knockout, whatever it ended up being, it was cool, man. It was really cool. And I enjoyed the conversation with him. We were all hanging out until, too early in the morning. I'll say this. But Alejandro Brugal, I'm very pumped to see what that guy does next. And I truly hope that I can be there to witness it. But so that was KC42. And we got our guy Chris down there, the man, the myth, the owner, the architect, KC43, December in Vegas. It's going to be on December 15th. So maybe it might, it might be interesting. We can ask the community. We can ask the uncensored nation out there what sort of content would be best and what y'all would want to see. Because, hey, we'll bring it in. We'll bring anything. But yeah, December 15th, Anthony Pettis and Benson Henderson. The trilogy goes down inside the pit. I'm curious. AP's got 2 wins on Benson Henderson, but both of those wins were years and years ago. And these guys aren't in their prime. Let's talk candidly about that. These guys are a little bit, athletically not who they once were, but still competent, still competitive. I mean, Benson just fought Umar Nurmagomedov, and granted it didn't go his way, but that's a badass to step in there with. Look at Anthony Pettis beating Roy Jones Jr. in the boxing, kind of continuing his MMA career at the PFL. And, I'm curious to see under this rule set what it's going to look like, how each individual veterans of combat sports, guys that have achieved so much. I'm curious to see how they're going to tackle it. We've seen a couple of UFC veterans, Antonio Arroyo, Sam Alvey, good old smiling Sam, who picked up a first-round knockout. Hopefully he's back on the card in Las Vegas, But these UFC veterans, I think Karate Combat is a real lucrative place to go and maybe continue their careers. And granted, not to and to flip that, I mean, KC, the focus shouldn't be, hey, let's pick up all these older, UFC veterans. I know BKFC does a pretty good job of doing that, and a couple other orgs. But, these guys want to compete, and now they have the experience of the UFC. Why not host them? Why not have them? I think it kind of makes sense for everybody. And the rule set for Karate Combat, it is unique. It is very different. And there is a lot to appreciate and enjoy about it. I'll say this. I do hope that at some point we get elbows. I think elbows would be fantastic. We've got knees. We've got the 5 seconds of ground and pound after a takedown. We've got strikes. We got calf kicks, no strikes to the thighs. And I just feel like elbows would be a fun inclusion. Granted, maybe that would take away the essence of karate. And I know that there's a ton of purists, a ton of traditional karate fans that do not like what Karate Combat is doing. Let's unpack this. Yeah. It's always weird to me when you have these super hardcore fans and they'll just stand on their soapboxes that are, just quickly getting smaller and smaller and smaller and go, yo, this is bad. This isn't karate. This is terrible. Hey, newsflash, buddy. It's 2023. We are modernizing. We have to modernize, evolve or die, improve or go extinct. So I think for some of these purists out there that have such a commitment to old age karate, they just are resistant to embracing what Karate Combat is doing. And granted, I get it. It is different, and change is change creates apprehension. Change incites uneasiness, especially if it's, where you've got a personality as the figurehead, and there is that polarizing nature. I can understand why some of these traditionalists and the hardcores aren't exactly as on board as some other people, but I just think open-mindedness is the key. Karate Combat's still young. I think it's 5 or 6 years old, so everyone's still trying to figure out the legs here. And the fact that we did the Kumite, I know that this is kind of a smaller, and this is a little self-serving, because of course it's a thing that I was a part of, but it shows that they're doing different things. They are going to try to do a contender series. They are going to try to do not try to, they've done so much international representation, right? It's a company that's taking risks. It's a company that is constantly evolving and innovating. And I think that in and of itself is a reason to be a fan and a reason to tune in. And again, when you look at kind of the execution of these events, they are not like any traditional combat sports show. They're just not. You look at the sound stage that we're on, the computer generated, backgrounds, and the flash, the style of it all. I don't know. I mean, it's, I've done a decent amount of work with the regional scene for combat sports. There is a lot of copy and paste. There is a lot of similarities between how promotions will run their events. Karate Combat is adhering to not really any of that, doing their own thing, beaten by their own drum. And, in a space where, especially with some current, antitrust cases that are going on right now, I think differences should be celebrated. I think different players in the game, when they have their own style, their own identity, their own voices as organizations and brands, should be a little bit more supported. Or else, we're going to be stuck with one entity that controls it all. And I don't think that's healthy. Competition breeds innovation. I think it is worthwhile to support Karate Combat as a fan. It is incredibly worthwhile. And who knows? Who knows where they'll be? Who knows where I'll be? At least in December on the 15th, I know I'll be in Vegas for Karate Combat 43. All right, that was UFC Sao Paulo and a little bit of KC 42 fight week. I'm fucking tired as shit. I had a late night. Can't talk about it on stream, but I'm a little tired, but I hope you guys had a good one. And the event yesterday, again, we didn't like that main event maybe, but there were some really solid performances. And Nicholas Dalby, King of Brazil. I can't wait until next week. We've got a huge card, UFC 295, Yuri Prochazka, Alex Pereira, Sergey Pavlovich, and Tom Aspinall. 2 title fights in MSG, the Mecca, New York City. I'll be watching. I hope you'll be there as well. From everyone at Team MMA Uncensored, make sure you tune in, like, subscribe, share, I don't know. That's it. Bye.